I want Hilary Swank in the next Terminator movie so bad.
There is nothing in this world that you give me to do to hug a robot.
It's because it's so incredible and intricate that it's impossible not to notice.
Music's the core of this movie.
I was born again to watch this movie.
You'll find redeeming things and you'll be thinking about it for a long time afterwards.
There was no bone saw.
Just John hamming it up over here.
2.5 out of 3 of us recommend it.
Everybody loves talking about movies. Let's talk about movies.
Good evening, good day, good time zone wherever you're at, and welcome to the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast. Welcome one, welcome all. We're going to be talking Parasite tonight, but we're going to dive in first, and we're going to go backtrack a little bit on what we've been watching this week. We're going to start out with Vince. What's up, man?
Hey! Also, Josh is here if you want to know.
Oh, I was going to welcome him next.
Oh, my bad.
I wanted it to be a surprise.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to go into this movie that I want you guys to I want to hear what you have to think about it, and I want Josh to know.
Did you watch it?
I don't think we're thinking of the same
Oh,
one.
no.
Which one are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of Little Monsters.
Oh, actually, I do have something to say about that. I put it on last night. I got about 25 minutes in, and I turned it off because I was not enjoying anything that they did. Did you watch it?
No, I didn't. And the thing is that
Lupita Nyong'o doesn't even show up. I probably just butchered her name. She doesn't even show up until like 25 minutes into the movie.
Huh.
And the guy, the main character in it,
I thought she was the main
wasn't in.
character.
I did too.
From what the commercials had.
Yeah, that right? Anyway, and it doesn't even reference zombies 30 minutes into it. There wasn't a zombie reference in it.
Interesting.
So, I don't know.
I'm probably going to watch it tonight, honestly.
I didn't even start it because I no longer have Hulu.
Womp, womp. How do you watch Sunny in Philadelphia then?
I don't watch Sunny in
I'm
Philadelphia.
sorry. No
I
wonder.
watch great TV.
This explains so much that you don't watch Sunny every week like I do.
It's because I'm depressed, man. Okay?
No, let me tell you what I've been
life.
watching.
Okay, I'm ready.
I saw Six Underground. Is that what it's called?
Oh, with Ryan Reynolds.
With Ryan Reynolds on Netflix.
Oh, okay. Tell me
And
about
it's
this.
a Michael Bay movie, and Ryan Reynolds, his promoting of it was it's the most Michael Bay movie of all the Michael Bay movies. The first 20 full minutes, introduces the characters through a car chase, a 20-minute long car chase from the get-go, and it was so much fun to watch.
I was about to ask him, was that a good thing or a bad thing for you, Vince?
It was so much fun to watch. Slow motion car drifting, just guns, so many explosions. There is more cuts, the editor, Michael Bay's style, it's just you cut here and then the helicopter moves 10 feet and you cut again, so it's jumping in different angles and it's just chaos and explosions and cars turning and slow motion Ryan Reynolds making jokes. There's more cuts in the first 15 seconds of this movie than in the entire movie of 1917.
Well done.
Not even kidding though. 10 seconds in, there's probably 30 cuts of different angles and everything. This movie was bonkers, just so much exploding, and it was a lot of fun. It's not a good movie, but if you just want to sit back and enjoy some just mind-numbing action, this was a really fun ride, and I would recommend it to
Vince
you.
basically just talked about my description for what I believe Fast 9 is going to be.
Oh, exactly.
Except
Please.
I am digging the whole John Cena thing and everything. I think it could be cool.
And Han is coming back. Don't do that. Don't do that to me.
Why can't anyone stay dead in a franchise movie?
I don't think he's going to be a part of the upcoming part because he's gone, I think, straight up. But what I think is they're going to have more flashbacks.
I don't know, man. They're going to have to explain how Han looks 20 years older to me if he's in a flashback.
Cigarettes.
Cigarettes.
Because someone mentioned that to me, too, when they saw the trailer for it. And they're like, well, maybe it's the timeline's different. You know how episode or number 3 takes place after number 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or before, whatever. Maybe that, but it doesn't make any sense because Charlize Theron's coming back. And I don't know. I love Han. It was sad that he died, but it's just franchise movies they just keep retconning themselves. There was a movie that focused so much on the death of Han, and now it's just oh no, Han's not really dead. I don't know how we got into Fast and the Furious.
That's fair. He said his thoughts for Fast 9, and I'm so excited for that. But Josh, Did you have any more to talk about? That you were
No,
watching?
Six Underground's fun though. It's not as like over the top like cars swinging on a rope like Fast and the Furious is, but like it's just a really fun dumb action movie. You should check it out.
Is it better than Gone in 60 Seconds?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed this one.
Okay. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
What have you been watching this week?
Nothing really. I've been super stressed about the upcoming Super Bowl, which once this drops, y'all will already have known the result of. But I, as a huge 49ers fan, am super stressed right now. So I've been watching a ton of Super Bowl videos. But I did have time to watch the second episode of Picard, which was not as intriguing as the first episode because they explained really quickly a lot of the things that the first episode left as like this big weird mystery. And in kind of not a lame way, but it's just like, oh, okay, I get it. But it is like still super intriguing. But it was sort of just like, what is happening in the second episode instead of kind of leading you on a little bit. It's like, this is what's happening. Like, here you go. And so,
Mystery's already over.
yeah, Picard is still really good though. Like it was, and it's also very real. Like, I guess like if you don't want to hear like kind of not big spoilers, but just like, it's real in that when Jean-Luc Picard, who even though he was this big like admiral and everything in Starfleet, he like quit and all this stuff, and kind of not on the best terms with Starfleet. He came back because of this feeling he has and stuff that he wants to do, and he says, hey, like I need like a ship, like a small ship and a crew and stuff like that so that I can go and coordinate this thing, instead of them being like, dude, sure. They were like, nope, like what the heck do you think? Like that's not gonna happen. You haven't been a part of Starfleet for however long. And so it's more real like that. And I don't know, it's still Star Trek, it's still the next generation, it's still Patrick Stewart, but it's very, very modern, and I'm digging it. I'm loving it.
That I watched one review from something on YouTube, and these guys, the reason I watched it is because like I like to watch their stuff, and they are always somehow, not always, but every once in a while they'll recommend or they'll reference Star Trek, so like they're super into it. They're like mid 40-year-old guys, so they've been watching it their whole lives, and they didn't really like it, and they picked it apart. They didn't like the J.J. Abrams ones either, but that being said, that makes me think that I'll like it, because the ones that the Star Trek, like hardcore Star Trek guys don't like are the ones I always end up really liking. So maybe I'll like this one if the nerds don't like it. The nerds. Sorry, I'm a Star Wars nerd. Like I'm a part of the nerds. Just, I don't know. I want to give it a chance, but I don't want to pay the money for that.
That's true. I'll just have to like slide you my information.
There's an idea.
But
I think the first episode is also up for free.
It's not like up for free.
No? Okay.
It's like you can get it through the 7-day free trial. I
that's
think.
what it is.
I don't know.
Okay.
They've been advertising it, so who knows.
Gotcha.
But, and then also since I do now own CBS All Access for that reason, I also watched a lot of the episodes of the new Twilight Zone, Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone. And let me tell you, it is bomb. I'm loving it.
I saw the first
Digging it.
3 episodes.
So you saw Nightmare at 30,000 Feet?
Yep, the
With
one
Adam
with
Scott.
the podcast. Or
Yeah,
it's a
with the
right?
podcast, yeah.
That was really
I loved that one. Well, because I didn't know. I thought that they were going to be like remaking old episodes and do like new things, but like just sort of revamp the old one for a newer audience. I didn't know that it was going to be so different, because I don't know if you've seen like the original Twilight Zone with the Nightmare at 30,000 Feet.
Me and my dad used to
episode.
watch that.
It's way different. Like, spoilers, like the original one a long time ago is all about the
William
dude like
Shatner pulling it back to Star Trek.
Exactly. The original one's all about freaking dude seeing like this monster like on the plane like as they're flying at 30,000 feet, and this one is totally different, but I loved it. It was so good. Adam Scott killed it. Jordan Peele is great. And I actually haven't watched all the episodes, but I kind of jumped around, kind of like Black Mirror, since they're not really like all connected. And let me tell you, episode 10 is super trippy, because it not only like, because it pulls a classic Twilight Zone, and it goes from, it starts out as looking like an episode that's going to be about like Seth Rogen as a writer, but then it breaks.
Wait, Seth Rogen in it?
Yeah, he's in it.
He's
in it. So he like, but that's the thing, is that he actually doesn't end up being in this episode very much, because he's like there and he's being a writer, and it does the whole first part of the movie like a normal episode, and then Jordan Peele comes out and he starts doing the narration, and then he stops and he's like, wait guys, he's like, I don't like this monologue, like we got to change it, and then it breaks, and the actual setting for that episode is the set of the Twilight Zone, the set of it. So it's super cool, trippy. Zazie Beetz is the main person in that episode. She's one of the writers for the show. Super cool. Check it out if you're got any interest in CBS All Access. It's $6 a month for ads. You do get a 7-day free trial, and $10 a month without ads. Check out that and Picard.
And CBS, this is an ad, so we're charging you.
Pay us.
Pay us. Nice. I've been actually wanting to watch Picard, but I have been distracted watching other things.
You still watching Scandal?
Yes, I am still watching Scandal, and I'm about knees deep into that thing. I'm in. I am invested. So if anyone's been watching Scandal or has watched Scandal, I don't even know if it's still on the air. We're just watching it on Netflix. It is cool. I'm down with it. But I also started watching The Two Popes this week.
Oh, nice.
That is a really cool movie, and it's very well thought out. I came of age during the end of John Paul II's life, and then the new pope came about, and then once again the next pope stepped down, which is something that didn't happen. I remember the world was like, ah! And so here I am, a person who has witnessed all of this in real life, watching it on the screen. Obviously my screen's not the big screen because I have a smaller TV, but it's a cool story, and I enjoyed it just primarily because I have this weird obsession with theology, because I can't make sense of all of it personally. But then I wanted to talk about...
Do you think Anthony Hopkins is going to get that Oscar? It's him that got nominated, right?
It is him that got nominated.
Actually, didn't they both? Question mark?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Maybe not. Sorry. Maybe
They
that
might
was
have
the
both
Golden
been-
Globes.
Yeah, I don't.
I'll
So what do you
check it
think?
real
Was
quick.
his performance Oscar worthy?
As far as I've seen it thus far, yes, I would say. Because, like, do you know what's really hard, and I can't imagine doing this, is portraying a character that 75% of the world thinks is the living embodiment of the Apostle Peter, right? And then there's also the fact that they are portraying a true story and what people didn't know but kind of knew at the same time about it. And so it's just very, like, it's interesting, it's curious, and it talks a lot about, like, the theology behind the church and the doctrine behind the church and all of that. So it's actually a very cool, like, the guy who's, I forgot his name, he's also the High Sparrow in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I forgot his name all of a sudden.
I don't know.
But his character is really interesting. Like, who's Pope Francis now. He's just very interesting all around.
It'd be interesting to watch because I know nothing about the Catholic Church.
Oh, we could have long discussions about it.
I don't know anything about it.
But
Other than what I've learned on TV.
But then I also finished C this week.
Ooh.
And I freaking loved it, guys. I loved it so much. I could dedicate a whole episode to talking about C, because it's eight episodes, and it's beautifully shot. The story, and I think Vince hit this in another episode, the story is just like, how does this work? Then they figure it out. Like, they show you how it works. And just the story is slightly complex. There's, like, a lot of ifs, and then there's, like, this fellow with a god complex in there. There's a lady with a god complex. Like,
Jared Leto's in it?
no.
Just the guy with the god
Yeah,
complex.
that took me a second. I was like, what? How?
Where did you see that?
You're thinking
Yeah.
of Jason Momoa.
Yeah, and like I said, Jason Momoa could carry me through any front door, and I would be grateful for it.
How about that fight scene in like episode, or I think it's like episode 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Jason Momoa in that like one room fighting all those guys.
Yeah, that's freaking crazy. And then, like, what's so crazy about this is the boat scene as well when they're traveling down the
Yeah, that
river.
was good.
That's impressive. And then when he goes in later on, and there's another scene that's just like, holy crap, this dude is a beast.
Isn't it just fun to watch Jason Momoa?
It is. There's so much action, and it's not like, and I hate to say this, it's not cheap action either. Like, it's well thought out. Like, it looks like it plays, and it's good. And also, you get to see Jason Momoa using his rock climbing skills, which I think is super tight.
Which is funny because like
So big.
after Free Solo came out, he's been climbing. Well, he was climbing. I don't know if he still is. I followed Alex Honnold on Instagram, and they were climbing a lot together.
Yeah.
So it was fun to see that after like he's gotten firsthand lessons from the master.
Well, so is like Jared Leto, like a bunch of actors actually
Yeah,
are
they're, like,
friends with these guys. They take him out on private like climbing trips and
so
stuff like
funny
that.
to me.
It's a good way to pad your pockets if you're a professional climber. Make friends with movie stars.
Yeah, do you think they're paying for those, or do you think they're just like, oh, we're all famous, let's hang out together?
I think some of them they pay for it, but can you imagine being a professional athlete, right? Like, you're renowned, but you don't have the status of that, and they're like featuring you on Instagram accounts or like doing all
Yeah.
this type of stuff. You've got to be
Get
getting
some
something.
exposure.
But also, there is the other side of it too, where like the insurance or like, hey, pay me for his trip, like safety reasons or whatever, you know. Like, I can imagine that, but I bet they're all really friends in real life. Jason Momoa is actually, he's really good friends with the founders of a climbing company called So Ill, I think is what it is. And so he actually has a collection with them as well right now, which is like a pinkish color. Like the shoes and stuff are pinkish. There's a black and then there's like a teal color. So
It's a Jason Momoa branded.
yeah, like it's a collaboration he has.
Cool.
And I think his company is called On the Roam, which is cool. So yeah, Jason Momoa for the win for me. So yeah, that was me talking about Jason Momoa for like 10 minutes. But watch See, worth it. It's on Apple. It's really cool to see how a lot of these streaming services are developing their own film series. And it's cool to see that transition from the old television networks to these new kind of just digital networks that are doing it. So like Netflix is doing it well, Amazon Studios is doing it well, right? And I think Apple's really going to step up the game and help them continue stepping that game up as well.
Final, what we've been watching, I totally forgot, but the series finale of The Good Place aired this week, and I watched it, and I loved it. So, wow. That was...
You okay?
Casey has almost died.
I'm like Wheezy from Toy Story. When I get a cough, it's like... So yeah.
There's that plug. The end.
All right, should we dive into this? So I've already like spilled the beans a little bit. We're talking Parasite tonight, which is a Korean language film shot in Korea, filmed in Korea, based heavily around the Korean culture, which I think is quite impressive. All around, like, I love international film. I'm not one of those people who like doesn't like reading subtitles, but sometimes I like just the silence of international film as well, because some of them have that. But what I think is beautiful is this film, even if I hadn't read all the subtitles, I would have an idea of what's going on, which is kind of cool. So, but the dialogue that was added through the subtitles was fantastic. So for me, I love this film. But Vince, you have a few facts about this, don't you? Or should we go with Josh, who has other facts about this?
Vince.
Yeah. So this movie, this is going to be a fun one because there are some names that I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing in this, okay?
All of us, so please just bear with us. We're sorry.
Do you want me
Yeah.
just to read them?
I've got them here.
Okay.
So first off, the movie was directed by Bong Joon-Ho. It was also written by him and Jin Won-han. It was released November 8th, 2019, with a budget of $11 million, which was kind of hard to find how much this movie cost. It wasn't listed on, hard to find. I Googled how much did it cost to make Parasite, and it came up. But it came up in South Korean money.
South Korean wons or
It had a
whatever?
weird,
Yens or wons or
whatever it is.
Yeah.
It had a weird symbol next to it, and it was like 16 billion of whatever these were. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? So it translated to $11 million.
Imagine going to the airport there. I had a layover there when I was flying to the Philippines, and I had no idea. And it was like, this is like 400 something. And I was like,
It sounds like so
that's
much.
the most expensive McDouble I've ever purchased. And it was like $6.
I saw that price. It was like 16 billion. I was like, whoa, what? And then I saw the symbol.
I think
and
they
that made
lost
sense.
money.
But it's so far, according to IMDb, it has made worldwide 161.5 million-ish. So they've made a lot of money. The movie was entirely filmed in South Korea, which is super cool. Rotten Tomatoes gave it the critics have given it a 99%, and the audience have given it a 93%. IMDb is at 8.6, and I just can't believe how few people have given it lower than like a 4-star rating. Like usually you get on some of these apps and you look at the kind of the trend, like the Letterboxd app that I do, you can kind of see how many people give it a 1, a 1.5, up to a 5. It's like 5-star, way the heck up there, 4.5, just a little bit lower, and then everything below that is almost non-existent. Like this,
Really?
movie
Even
is,
4 stars and everything like that?
Yeah, it is. I'll
See,
show
I
you
thought that
after.
like some people, especially with how a lot of Americans are with like reading subtitles, would be like, "This was good, but it's just 3 or 3.5 or 4 stars."
I'm showing him right now.
That's
Like,
so
the,
well, because
according this
5
is
stars
Letterboxd,
is
right?
so much bigger than everything else. Well,
Like,
what does that? Does that mean there's
so-
only 46 reviews on it?
No, it's 5 stars. You can click on it here. 4.5 stars has gotten 52.2 thousand, and 5 stars 115.4 thousand have rated it 5 stars.
Oh my goodness.
And then like below that is like 7.7, 3.5, 3.93, and lower and lower and lower. Like this movie is just loved by everyone who is seeing it.
And in case you can't put those numbers like in a quantical graph in your head that fast, it's basically just an exponential graph going up to 5 stars.
What
Just
word did
getting
you just
huge.
use? Quantical?
I don't know. Maybe it's not a word. Probably not.
Listen, I'm
Ask
not
the
very
wrong
smart.
person.
I'll admit that, but I was like, that's an impressive word.
I've definitely said words
Word
on
of the
here
day.
that are like not real, but I just like I say, hey, quant like means like numbers and
Hey,
stuff
Siri,
like that.
define
Like,
quantical.
don't do it. No.
I found this on the web.
For quantico, no. It's
No,
all good.
not legit.
All right, we're moving on.
But no,
It's an
that's-
exponential
Next
graph
time, the
going up
next
to 5
episode will be
stars.
pointing out poor grammar used by Josh.
That is not hard to come by.
Oh, and then we'll do one about my stumbling through sentences. Like we'll just really roast each one of us.
Just all of us roast each other. That can be our next episode. Is just a Michael Scott style roast.
Boom,
all
roasted.
of us.
So this movie has 4 Oscar nominations this year.
6.
6?
Yes.
I only have 4 written down.
It definitely has 6.
I got Best Picture, Best Director, Best Foreign Language Film, Best Original Screenplay. Do you remember the other 2?
I'll have to check it out, but I know that
But it
it's
has 6. Okay.
Yeah.
So 6 Oscar nominations. You can look it up if you want to know what those other 2 are. And this is going to be the fun one. Starring Kang Ho Song, Soon Kyun Lee, Yo Jong Cho, Woo Sik Choi, So Dam Park, Jung Run Lee, Hai Jin Jang, and Ji Song Jung. I apologize if I messed those up.
Hey.
But the cast is amazing. I didn't know any of them before, but they all did such a fantastic job in this movie.
Best production design and best film editing
Oh, okay.
are the other 2.
okay, I
nominations.
can see it.
Well, yeah, that makes sense because one of my fun facts here is the house that they filmed the movie in,
Which is so gorgeous.
built for the movie.
And
Wasn't there before. They made it specifically for this movie. They designed everything around what they were going to shoot.
fun fact, like even though the house is there, a lot of it is fake. There's no second floor on that house.
Oh, really?
Like when they go into the rooms, specifically of the kids' rooms and everything like
Those
that,
aren't
that's
really
on the second floor. Those are filmed at separate locations.
Oh, when I read this fact, I just assumed they built a whole house for the movie.
So they did build like that entire like bottom part and everything like that, and there's stairs, but the stairs go up to like nothing really. There's just something up there, and then when they do stuff on the second floor, it's filmed at a different location.
Upstairs is a ball pit.
You just
For
hop
the
down.
cast,
those.
it is?
You just it's a cast ball pit. Like instead of a cast hot tub, you get a cast ball pit.
Well, man, I would love to live in that house. It is gorgeous, and it is like so perfectly set up. I love the idea of the basement going between all those shelves. You know, it's just so visually pleasing. Like everything about this house, like, oh man, I want to move to South Korea and live in that place.
That
It's
was
so cool,
90%
so
of
pretty.
me during this film was like looking at the architecture of this house and just the.
They designed it around a specific architect I read, but I don't remember who it was. Like the style.
I'll look
you
it
know,
up.
Kind of a thing. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
We got to move on. So yeah, that's about it. What did you guys think of the movie?
I don't know, initial reactions to the movie for me, because here's like how it was for me. I watched it the first time. The very first time I watched it was not in a theater. It was more like low-key chill, and I watched it and I understood like the base storyline and a lot of the base symbolism, and I liked it. I did not love it. I did not like, my mind was not blown, but I was like, that was pretty good. Like, I liked it, and like a lot more than I thought I was going to, because I was sort of like, I've heard a lot about Parasite, and it's friggin' like getting all this buzz because it was before the Oscar nominations happened. What's going on? And I watched it, and it was really good. And then I looked up stuff about it, and I started liking it more and more. And then I went and I saw it a second time in the theater, and then I just like loved
That's
it.
where it
like
clicked.
ever since then.
Excuse me.
Is this a spoiler-free section?
Yeah.
so far,
no,
Okay.
Let's just do spoilers. Let's just say all of our stuff is spoilers.
Okay. Okay. Good. Spoilers. But wow. What the hell did I just watch? That was literally I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, this was beautiful. It was well done. I enjoyed it. Like the aesthetic of it was good, but I'm conflicted about it at the same time. Like this story, this tale talks about a culture that I don't understand, that is experiencing somewhat of the American dream, because you have these people who are rising, you have the differences in class arriving, and then you have people who are aspiring to greater and bigger things, and how they're getting there is just wow. I think it's really cool. So the acting was great, the set design beautiful. I could kiss the set designer. Yeah. like a Japanese noni. No, like a Italian noni. Oop. thank you. But it was good. I enjoyed it. And
Lee Ha-jun and Won Woon-cho are the people who did the production design. So
Well-
you can kiss them someday when you find them.
when I go to the Grammys next week, it's the
The
Oscars. See, as you can tell, I'm not much of a I don't know awards, but yeah, this film for what it was very surprising, and I was kind of hesitant to watch it, to be honest with you. But
Did you like it the first time you watched it?
I've
Did you
only watched
love
it
the first
once.
time you- Oh, okay. I mean, so sorry.
so
that's right.
No, literally, I was like, "What the hell did I just watch?" But I was like, at the end, it was I feel good about it, but I'm still conflicted about how I feel.
That's how I felt.
I'm
Like,
still unsettled in ways about certain things that happened during that film. That's what I want to relay during this podcast. Is I enjoyed it, but my stomach is still kind of like that feeling when you've eaten too many nachos. It's kind of like, what is happening?
That's
to
an
me?
amazing feeling.
Yeah. So
I had that same reaction where I got like 3/4 of the way through it, and I was like, we hit pause because we saw it on. I've went through this on a past podcast, so I won't go into it very long. But I thought to myself, like, there's still 30 minutes left of this, and I've been racking my brain for the past week trying to figure out why I did not love this movie like everyone did. And number one, I took a lot of it by like in face value, did not catch a lot of the symbolism that was on it. And number two, I finally figured it out. I didn't like a single character in this movie. I was very uncomfortable watching this family take advantage of this other family for the first half of the movie. Just, I know that they're poor, and I know that they're trying to get themselves out of a financial situation that they're stuck in. But I felt like it started, and the son was like doing what he was doing for good intentions to help the family. And he even says, Dad, this isn't a lie because I'm going to get into college, and this is going to be the truth eventually. But then once they started getting like very self-centered in a way where they're like, we're going to get all these other people in the house fired so that our family can live this good life. Who cares what happens to this other family? That's where I had this disconnect with this family where I was just like so uncomfortable through the whole movie watching these con artists manipulate this rich family and then take over the place, And then
that was me. I felt so uncomfortable at that point
Yeah.
when I figured out. I was like, what are these people doing? They're so dirty.
And then
Also-
it got to the point, and sorry,
No,
and
go
then,
ahead,
And
finish.
then like the rich family too, they're just as bad. The most judgmental people, just like saying these terrible things about these lower class people, not meaning to, it's just the way that they were raised. And I just kept seeing the bad in all of these characters, and I just could not connect to anyone, and just felt uncomfortable through the whole thing, and just wanting it to end. And I think that's why I didn't like it.
So that begs the question, for a movie to be good, does it have to have likable characters?
No, like I
Or characters that
will-
you support and think are good? Because Joker is obviously a movie about a character who, while the movie like begs us to like him, but at the same time you can't like him, like while it does that, it's sort of the same thing where it's like, even though these characters, and even though there's no specific, like, even though the Kim family is sort of the protagonist, it's really about like all of them, the Kim family, the Park family, the old housekeeper's family. It's really about all of them. And it begs a question, like, with what this movie is trying to say, do you have to like the characters in order for the movie to be good, in order for the movie to get across its message? And that's my point, is that I really don't think you have to. I think it makes it better that you don't like them. Because if you liked the Kim family and you thought they were good people, then it would throw a much different like twist on the movie. Like, if you thought that they were good people and they were doing what's right, I don't think you could get the same message out of this movie that you do when they're not good people.
I totally agree. And I guess let me see how I can word this. I totally agree with what you're saying. I don't think you have to like a character for it to be a good movie, but for some reason, I don't know. Then maybe I just assumed that's why I didn't like it. But you're right. Like, I liked watching the Joker though. Like, I liked watching Joaquin Phoenix do what he did, even though I didn't, agree with the actions that he would take. I still enjoyed watching them. I enjoyed watching these guys do these things, but it got to the point where I thought I knew where this movie was going, when they were sitting around the house, when the rest of the family is out to, having their little camping trip, and they're just made themselves at home, sleep, laying in the family's beds, drinking all their
Their booze.
their booze, and eating all their food. And I was like, that's what this movie's about. They're the parasites, and they're going to take over this family's house and everything they own, and this family's not going to be doing anything about it. And then all of a sudden there's this right turn with the people in the basement that I did not see coming. Super cool. Like, go into this movie. I mean, people have already seen this for listening to this, but like, that was the best part of the movie to me, is the unpredictability. But I guess my point is I lost my train of thought.
Well, so just to go off of that part made the movie so much deeper, because I was watching it and I loved it and it was all going good and stuff. But then once it gets going to, hey, this person made it into the house, what can we do to get the next person into the house? It got sort of, even though it was funny and intelligent, the ways that they would do it, it started getting predictable. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like, but like, this is almost like a simplistic story until that happened.
Well, and I think you have to understand a little bit of the context around the culture there, right? And kind of the way that folks are over there, because this is a country that literally, since the Korean War, has emerged from being a third world country to being one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world, with money, with power, with status, and all of this kind of stuff. Like, a lot of people, when they think, what is a, one of the Asian tigers, right, as they call them, like, countries, Korea is there, but it's not really like a powerhouse. But you see this, and the wealth, the difference, I don't know if it's wealth disparity or whatever it is, the differences in wealth is crazy there. It's very similar to the Philippines. Like, I watched a lot of Korean dramas that are translated to Filipino while I was there to learn the language. Great way to learn, guys. Essentially, like, understanding it, all these people were trying to do was make sure that they wouldn't have to live in that basement apartment that would flood every time it would rain, where their toilet would like spout shit out, all the time. And like, that's the thing, is like, and that's the hard part, is it also focuses on Korea's emphasis and that culture's emphasis on education and how much difference it can make. Because think about it, that girl, so skilled in graphic design and computer stuff, couldn't get a job because she didn't have a degree. But as soon as they made a fake degree, look where it led the whole family to.
But it was more about the word of mouth, right? The recommendation.
The recommendation.
Over the
and that's true,
fake
but they
degree.
all had to have credentials, because like when he's like saying, oh yeah, she went to this school, and she brought her own then version of the thing, and then the wife's like, oh, you're great, you've got all this achievement, what if this is this, was this is this, and it's just kind of interesting that, yeah, I think the word of mouth is something I probably missed talking about this, and so I'm grateful you bring it up. But really, like, the emphasis on education in this like proves what education can do for you versus the other, because the family that was poor was more resourceful, and the family that was rich was,
but in the wrong way.
Yeah.
that's I think that's what bothered me so much, is like I understand why they did it, but they just go about it in a dishonest way, and it just makes me so uncomfortable to watch. And I guess just to bring it back, I remember my train of thought. No, I don't think you have to like the main character to be a good movie, but I admit this is an amazing movie, and it's so full of symbolism that I missed. And the first thing that I said to you, Josh, after I saw it was, I don't understand why this is an Oscar-nominated movie. I completely understand why it's an Oscar-nominated movie now. Like once I started looking into some of this stuff that went way over my head, I was like, okay, I get it. And I'll bet you it wins the most original screenplay. There's just
can we talk
something
about
that
the
didn't
twist a little more?
Oh, I did want to mention really quick.
Okay.
Sorry. So a fun fact for when you guys were talking about the part where he's looking at her being smart with all the graphic design and everything like that. So that is the only point in the entire movie where the subtitles do not match up with what is actually said, because he looks at the degree that she made or everything, and he's like, wow. And if you remember what he said in the subtitles, it says, does Oxford have a major in like forgery of documents and everything like that? And the guy, he actually doesn't say that. He says a university that's based in Southern Korea. But he said for the audience to understand, Bong Joon-ho said for the audience to understand the joke, it should be subtitled in a way that Americans and Britons and everyone else would get it in a university that's like known across the world. And so they put Oxford instead of the university that was actually said in the script.
Interesting.
Fun fact.
Weird translation stuff.
Sorry.
Can we talk the twist?
Ooh.
Do we want to talk the twist? I want to talk about this because, right, Vince, you kind of touched on this earlier. There's a scene, and obviously if you watch the movie, you know, where the family's just lounging about after they've weaseled their way in, and they're all just chilling in their, like, you know, their scrubs hanging out on their fancy couch, which I still don't understand how that couch looks comfortable. It doesn't. But they're just chilling, drinking.
I love that style of couch. I have a big, deep couch like that you can lay down on. I mean, that one didn't look super comfy.
Yeah.
But, like, I love those big, deep
just
couches.
the backrest on that was what turned me off from it. I was like, there's like, they're like, it's like a castle wall. It's like the parapet up top where so you can like throw your hot oil down or something like.
How cool is it that couch isn't facing a TV, though?
10 points.
Like every house that, like my house especially, every couch that I have, every chair that I have is pointing towards a TV, and this one is sitting in the middle of a living room that's looking out into this beautiful yard. I don't know.
No, it's true.
I
wish
got
that
a
I
little
was more
envious
cultured.
of that beautiful nature right there. Like we have like a nice living room at our house here, and we can look out in the mountain, which we love to do. But like amazing view. Like they create a space that just like really resonated. It was like
It resonates, and to go along with some stuff we'll talk about later for sure, it lets in. It's just pure glass, and it lets in so much light, and it's just a beautiful space for them. Like the housekeeper and her husband talk about when they would like bask in the sunlight and stuff. It lets in so much light in such a beautiful space. So I'll mention more of that later.
yeah.
So
the twist. The best part in the movie, in my opinion, because this is where it took a dive into the horror aspect.
My heart was
I get-
pumping, man.
I guess it was more that one scene where the kid sees the guy who's locked into the basement that comes up and
That
peeks
was
over
just
the thing.
Freaky.
I loved that moment. That was the creepiest thing. You know which part I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, what's cool
where the
about
kid
this-
says he sees a ghost and they have the flashback and he sees him coming out of the thing.
Just his eyes.
I tried to make that as my my phone's background, just the eyes peeking over the bottom of my phone. It didn't quite work. It was too pixelated, but I want that.
Well, what's cool is the design of that wall, how it's dark and everything goes into it, but somehow there's light, like I would assume on the steps going down, right? Where it just like it pops over and he looks
And the
like
way he's looking
straight
at
up
him.
looks like a demon. He
Those
looks
white eyes just popping.
yeah, it's just like holy crap, and then like it all clicks, like why the kid's afraid, why the kid's just out there, and
Because that would give me nightmares if I ever just saw that in my house one night.
Yeah.
I
So
mean-
anyway, do you want to walk us up to how that twist kind of like shows itself?
yeah, they're just chilling in there on that super deep couch that Vince likes
Sorry,
the
I
style
sent us
of.
on a tangent there.
No, it's all good. That Vince likes the style of, and then all of a sudden the old housekeeper comes out there and she's like, "Hey, I forgot something in the basement," and she just like barges her way in. Once that, and they all hide, by the way, too. All the family hides, and then the housekeeper comes in. She's like, "Oh, you're so messy," type thing, and she goes downstairs and she's like rips this thing out and opens the thing, and there's a doorway down there, and they're like,
And it's the first moment.
"That is the sketchiest freaking thing ever." By the way, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Sorry, I was just thinking about it. And it's like, it's the first moment where there's ever really like a pause or a break or like not a breath, but like a sort of like hiccup in the storyline and what's happening. Because
'cause
the whole
that's-
first part of the movie is sort of really, really fluid as far as where everything is going, what's happening, what they're doing. And it just keeps going one by one. They make their way into the household and then they're sitting there. They've basically accomplished their goal and they're drinking the booze. And then the moment the doorbell rings is when you have to just be like, whoa. Like, okay, what's happening? Number one, with like, who's there and everything like that. And then it just keeps pushing it further. It goes, who's there? And everything like that. And she's like, oh, and she goes downstairs. And then she's like, she's been down there a long time. She goes downstairs to see what's going on. And she's freaking braced.
It's so funny.
She's braced between the thing and the wall pushing. And you're just like, what is happening? Like,
It's so funny the
but also
position she's in too,
intrigued.
like up above. And
Yeah,
pushing.
exactly. She's like a
this
few
crouching,
feet in
just,
the
like
air.
shoving it.
And she's pushing it, and you kind of laugh, but you're also like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then when they finally get it open and she goes down and they're just descending into this secret basement that you didn't know about, you're just like, what is this? What is happening? How does this exist?
It, like I said, I thought I had figured the movie out, and I was to the point where I was just like, I don't want to see this family get taken advantage of. I mean, I wanted to see it, like I wanted to watch it, but I was just like, why is this so cool? Why is everyone loving this? And then that's when it all took the turn.
Well, and the craziest part is once she helps her push this, right, she falls to the ground and they get it all over. And then when they get down there, this guy's just like He's been hungry
just
and
this
whatever,
skinny,
you know?
creepy guy, and you're trying to figure out what's going on and why he's down there and why this
He's hiding from...
Because through the whole movie, you think, like, I felt so bad for that housekeeper when she got fired for no reason. They were freaking poisoning her. You know,
Yeah.
she's allergic to those peaches, and they were poisoning her. This family, I just did not agree with any of their decisions. And so when she comes in, and you're just like, the one person other than the driver that I like felt bad for, all of a sudden they flip it so I don't feel bad for her anymore. How can you imagine putting yourself in the shoes of that rich family that owned that place and learning? I mean, they don't really learn it, but could you imagine finding out that someone had been living in your basement your entire time there, watching everything you do, listening to everything you do, worshiping you in a way like that guy does? Like, he respects him so much that he turns the lights on. He's like, I can't believe how like uncomfortable that would make me in the house, just knowing someone has always been there, hidden away. I hate it.
And at this point, right, so there's this story that Allie told me. She listens to a lot of true crime podcasts. And I thought about this while we were watching this. There's this guy who apparently lived in the basement of a mistress for like 30 years. He lived between the floorboards, and like they described him, and this is what was funny: pale and sweaty. And that's what this guy in the basement was like. He was a little bit pale and he was a little sweaty, and it's like, that's kind of funny. And he was like kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, he
He's
just
like
kind of lost his mind being in solitude down there.
Not to like go like too far off the subject, but I did see something like that once where someone like didn't notice anything, but then they like subtly noticed that there was sort of like food going missing, and so they didn't know what was happening. So they set up a camera to like watch their kitchen and stuff, and they lived in like an apartment, and then somehow someone like got through. There was like this thing in their ceiling that like went through air vents, and this person wasn't just like someone else who lived there. This person was like living in like these air vents,
That
like
makes me so
between places,
uncomfortable.
and they would like come in and like steal food at night, and it was
it
super
happens.
freaky.
It happens more than you know in the world.
It's happening to you right now.
Vince, there's
See,
somebody
that's what I'm
living in
worried
your
about.
basement.
Like, is there a secret hatch in my house? Like,
That is kind of freaky.
Yeah, your house creeper. His name is Randy.
Randy.
Randy. But no, like that's the funny part about this, right? Is there is that whole thing where there is this family weaseling their way in, but there's already someone else who's weaseled their way in. And what's interesting is Mr. Park, right? He's the one who owns the house, who's like the rich guy. He's like, yeah, that old housekeeper, she used to eat for two. And they kinda, like,
that
brought
explains it. Yeah. I
because
didn't put that
she
together.
was taking food to her husband. Her husband was sneaking up and doing whatever. But isn't that just so crazy that like that could happen?
So
Like,
let's talk about something else before I get too freaked out.
okay.
Not really. We could keep talking about it. I'm just like,
Someone climbs out of the chimney sitting over there. Hey, can I get some food?
he's like, hey, sorry, just here for like my weekly rations.
Actually, that'd be creepy. So creepy. I would figure out a way to light a fire in the chimney and make sure that
Like
person was
right now.
smoked out. But what's next, Josh?
I don't know.
Oh, could we talk a little bit about how they kind of take over everything, which we kind of hinted on earlier? So the boy comes in to tutor because his friend recommended him, and the friend didn't want him to like fall in love with the girl because he wanted to come back.
Another
And
decision that I'm just so uncomfortable with. Like,
Yeah.
there's one friend that stuck his neck out for him, and what does he do? He immediately betrays him and takes the girl. Come on,
takes
man.
his girl.
It takes Dahe.
No. Ugh, come on, man.
So when he got that opportunity, you know, like his friend comes to him, he's like, hey, I have this girl who I want you to tutor and everything like that. And so he's the first one in. But something I did also want to mention from like pretty much the very beginning of the movie. So the family folds the pizza boxes and everything like that. And then the very beginning of the movie foreshadows that entire like first half of what they're going to do. So what happens is the lady comes to like get the pizza boxes and everything like that, and she says like, we won't accept them or anything like that. But then they had heard about like the position that was opening, right? And so for them, this family is just like scrounging for anything they can get, right? And so this position for them at the pizza place would be like huge. And so you see in the cinematography, they're showing the one girl who's like the manager of the pizza place is in the middle, and one by one the family like slowly crowds her, and they just getting there like as close as they can to this person because it's like their only source of like what's gonna happen. And it foreshadows that whole first part of the movie where they see a source of income, a way to get money into their house, and they just cling to it and they get as close and do everything they can to get it.
So essentially,
That's
these
cool.
folks put all their eggs in one basket.
They just do whatever they can until
Whatever
they
they-
like.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, they
whatever.
are starving. Like, I get it. They're they're living in this crappy apartment, like you were talking about. Like, I get the reasons they're doing it.
Chasing the Wi-Fi to the toilet.
That's interesting. What other symbolism are there in this?
Yeah, what are we
watched
missing
one,
here?
I watched one video that like walked me through it, and I was like, wow, I missed a lot of this. But
Well, so there's a lot of symbolism. There was one thing that I wanted to mention that was like sort of funny. Was that so the one guy gets in, right? And he's an English tutor, and then he's like, oh yeah, like my friend's classmate or whatever could like come in and do this thing. And so it gets to the point where he brings his sister, who's Jessica then, right? About who's gonna come in and be the boy's art therapist or psychiatry or everything like that. And so something funny online that I saw, it was someone who put like biggest Oscar snubs, and it was like this for that, this like Jennifer Lopez, all these other things, thing like that. And then there was one that was just meant to be humorous. At the very bottom they put best original song, Jessica Only Child. The one where they're like sitting at the door and they're like, Jessica Only Child, Illinois, Chicago. So I thought it was funny, but also like fun fact about that moment, it's not just like a thing that they're doing like a mnemonic device. It is, but the tune that they sing it to is actually a very common tune in South Korea that's used like sort of like a childhood rhyme. So it's almost they're singing like Mary Had a Little Lamb or something, but with the facts so that they could remember it.
cool.
So they do that and they're going along. And then who's the next one to get in? Is it the driver that's next?
Yeah. They get the driver fired by
And that
putting
was
the
like,
underwear in the car and making them think that the driver was just banging whores in the back seat.
But the thing is, that just also shows you how gullible that this Park family is, that they're just so rich that they'll literally like believe and they'll just extrapolate to these ginormous fantasies. They're like, oh man, this dude just gets off by forgetting to turn in the back of the car.
They didn't honestly confront him, right?
Oh, yeah.
They
never did.
fired
They
him
just
without
said-
really saying why.
They say, yeah, fire him.
It was fun it was interesting to watch like the progression, like you said, of this story that they're making up in their minds get worse and worse and worse. It started off with just like, oh, you know, I found this in there. It's kind of funny. I mean, everyone's sex life is their own. Who are we to judge? But, you know, what kind of girls would be doing this then leave their underwear? Oh, it must be a drug addict. Oh, he must be a drug addict. You know, it's just like they just kind of build off each other and build
And
the
it
story
shows
out,
how
build the
like
story out. and
separated they are from like,
from
real
reality.
society. Like what's actually going on in the world. They're like, yo, a person who would leave something like that, they have to be on drugs. You know, like there's no other option. Nothing else could have happened. You know, so it's so crazy. So they get him fired, and then
they did
finally,
it again with, they did it again with the maid. Like, you know, they plug one little bit of information in that lady's head, and then she just kind of takes it off and take it off. I don't know. They might push that one a little.
She
harder,
had
but
TB. That was what it was. She had tuberculosis, and
active tuberculosis.
they were like, oh, let's just dump peach fuzz on her.
Oh, and so then that's another point where I saw that was like, number one, like how awful, right?
Yeah,
Has a
can you
crazy,
imagine?
ridiculous allergy to it, and they make
and
it
peaches
worse.
are the best fruit out of all the fruits.
And I can like sort of understand. I have like a mild allergy to peaches, where it'll
I'm
like,
so sorry.
yeah, trust me, it stinks. Like I get like my throat is itchy, and if I eat like a ton of them, it sort of starts closing off. But like not like to that level, where literally like a little bit of peach fuzz gets on my neck, and I'm like, you know, just like awful. And so that's like number one, it's so awful. And then number two, you look at like the way they do it and how desperate they are just to get everyone in there to get as much income as they can. They're getting someone who literally worked for this family for years and worked in that same house for so long, for so many years. And they're just like, we can get this much extra money. And so they do it. And they go, it's not only that they do it, they go like all out to create such like an interesting way to do it, and a way that would be subtle, but that these rich people will believe. Like the guy literally doesn't even care about like any sort of credentials or checking online to see if this like maid company is real. He's just like, this is a nice card. You know, they know what they're doing. Yeah. That's like the whole like first, I don't even know if it's half. Is it half of the movie? Like until the twist?
Yeah, I think so. Because they all get into the house before, you know, they all manipulate their way into the house before you actually find out.
Well, because even though a lot of like the symbolism and everything happens in the second half of the movie, there is still a lot of stuff that like happens in the first half.
Can you explain to me the rock that is given to him by the friend?
Yeah. So there's a few different things that can go like for symbolism as far as the rock. And it actually ends up getting to the point where in the context of the story, with as much symbolism as there is in this movie, what ends up destroying the Kim family is sort of that the rock isn't symbolic. It's just a rock. And so what happens is the rock for the Kim family, it represents a symbolism of the ability to like, it's sort of, because like his friend Min said, he's like, the rock is like supposed to bring prosperity to families and everything like that. And so for the Kim family, prosperity, sorry, I probably said it wrong, I'm just rushing my words. So for the Kim family, the rock represents like the illusion of wealth, and the illusion of having it here means that we're going to be able to like bring money into the family, when actually the rock is sort of what brings their downfall. And especially for one sec. My bad. And especially for Ki-woo, it actually ends up being the method of his ginormous brain injury, because he, believing it as a sign of prosperity, a lot of people thought that when he went to the basement near the end to give, or with the rock, that he was intending to like kill whoever was down there. He wasn't. He was bringing the rock there as like a peace offering, because you know how they were talking about like how they wanted to, they're like, yeah, it got heated that night, everything, we told him to like settle down and talk it out. He was bringing the rock as like a peace offering, like, hey, here's this landscaping rock. It's something that can bring you wealth. It's like all of us who are struggling for money and stuff like that, here's something that can help you. He was bringing it as that, but then it ended up being his downfall, and it ended up being just a rock that was his demise, with Jung-se smashing him in the head.
See, I did not read it that way. I read it as the rest of the family were the only ones like being smart about the whole thing, and like you said, recognizing that it got heated. And I read it as after the dad tells him nothing in life matters, not even killing someone is a big deal. You know, you can't control anything, so why doesn't it matter? I read that as the kid saying, okay, well, in that case, I'm going to take this rock and take care of business, and I'm going to get rid of these two people so we don't have a problem.
And a lot of people read it that way, and I read it that way the first time as well, but then I was watching stuff with the director, and he was talking about it. And even though I think it was meant to seem like that as well, it wasn't meant to just be like, hey, he's doing this as a peace offering. There's nothing else to it. I mean, like, he's bringing a rock into the basement where he knows someone is, but he was meaning to go down there as like hey, here's this peace offering. It brings you wealth. It brings you happiness, other stuff like that. We want to give this to you so we can kind of smooth things over. But said lady died. So what's his face was pissed. So Jung-se was pissed. Yeah, so he gets his head smashed by the rock. And so the symbolism in the movie is that, yeah, the rock represents something that for them it's an illusion it's an illusion of like grandeur and like things that'll be happy. But then in the movie it actually ends up just being a rock. It kills the dude. It smashes them in the head. It doesn't bring them wealth. It brings them what ends up being their downfall.
That's awesome.
So there's the rock and its symbolism in the movie.
So then the only other thing that I kind of caught was the whole idea of the classes, you know, having them living in a basement and having the rich family living up above on top of the hill. And like you talked about earlier, Casey, the storm itself, and that a storm for one person can be a blessing and beautiful thing, and a storm for someone else can be a destructive, destroy your life, destroy your family, destroy everything kind of a thing. That, you know, this shows how much that I actually got read into it, that I missed a lot of the stuff. But that one I felt like was kind of obvious. I thought it was really cool too, just the way that it was kind of shown as they, you know, run home, go deeper into the thing, and the water's just pouring into their house. And then that next morning when they're just so happy, the rich people are so happy that they're going to have this nice garden party. Their camping trip turned into a garden party, and the dad's sitting in the front seat like...
There's rain, and it's like she talks about in the car, she's like, oh, that rain, it cleared out all the pollution. The sky's so blue, like, what a blessing, you know?
And the family had just spent the night in a gym laying on the floor.
With thousands of people.
Their house flooded.
Their house flooded. There was, like, refuse flowing into their house. Like, all of their possessions were gone. And then when the dad's, like, talking about, oh, hey, you need to come to the party, when he's driving him, right? The dad, like, smells, like rolls down the window, and, like, that like starts wearing on the dad everything that's happening. And this is where it leads up to the end, which is just the craziest,
which I didn't get why he did it the first time.
Oh my gosh.
The first time I've seen it once, but I did not understand why the dad snapped the way he did until someone explained it to me.
Yeah. And so for what you were talking about before with like the classes, there's a few different because obviously the whole movie is a big social commentary on classes and capitalism and the way that the world runs around those basic principles. And so there's a couple of basic things used throughout the movie to sort of represent that. A big one is the water with the storm and everything like that. And so they say the water always flows down from the rich to the poor. In the society that we live in, like quite literally, the rich live in the hills and the poor live further down, and a lot of times literally underground, like in this semi-basement that they live. And so it talks about like that the water always flows down. The water is never going to run up a hill, okay? Like for like the people who are rich and for the people who are poor, it's never just like going to one day like flip and be like, oh, all of a sudden like the people who are poor are going to have more opportunities and everything like that than the wealthy. Something like this will never affect the rich the way that it'll affect the poor. Like water doesn't run uphill, because if you can tell, like the whole like water doesn't run uphill thing is very like obvious, but it's also very like it's used, and he actually like shows that specifically so many times. I don't know if you guys remember, but there's a shot where it just shows them a couple of times and the guy's just like standing on the stairs and you can just see the water running down. And there's that beautiful shot where they're on the side of the mountain and they're just like walking down that staircase that runs down that side of that ginormous hill, and you can see the water flowing down the steps
right before they go
well.
in, or it might be right after, after they go in the tunnel.
Yeah, right before that, I think. And so it just, not a lot of people, I sort of wondered, I'm like, why is this taking so long? Just like, yeah, they left, they got out of the house. Yeah, like show like a couple of shots of them getting home. There was a lot of shots of them getting home. Number one, because it represented like how far they lived, how far down, because they were going down the entire time it took them to get home, or to their economic status, sort of like in a like symbolic sort of way, but also like to show like how far the water would go and how much water was running down and how much it would just affect and destroy this family. And so then the other one that I thought was even more interesting is the concept of light and the way that light plays such a huge symbolic role in the movie. At the very top, you've got the Parks. The Parks live in this house that is literally made of glass, and they can sit on their couch or stand, like it showed the housekeeper and her husband when they would do when the Parks were away, and just bask in the light. The light represents like health and happiness and like not being able to have to worry about like the world's problems and everything like that. You want the light. And so the light just represents like happiness and goodness in life and everything like that, right? The Kims, they live in a semi-basement. So they have access to the light, but they're not like completely removed from the light. They can still like look up and they can look out the window, and even though it's not the best view, they still have access to the light because they're still like working and they're doing everything like that. And then you get to the third level. The housekeeper's husband lives below ground in a basement under the house with no access to light. The only lights are like the lights that are like electrical and provided, but there's no sunlight in the bottom of the house. And so it represents like different social classes or different like layers, right? You have the rich, the poor, and then like the homeless or the extremely needy or everything like that at the bottom. And so what happens is that the people who live in the semi-basement, the Kims, they're just so afraid to fall into that lower level that the whole movie is about fighting within them, the Kims and the housekeeper's family, them fighting amongst themselves, because there's always that fear when you're in the lower part of the classes that you can slip even lower. So they're just trying to do whatever they can to like grasp and stay within some of the light so that they don't fall into that pit, that basement where there's no access to light, which spoilers is what happens to the dad at the end of the movie. Is he does, because of what they do, it ends up falling below the light. And he says it's really sad. Bong Joon-Ho says it's really sad, but it's really realistic in that even though this doesn't seem like the way it should be, a lot of class wars, when we talk about them, it isn't the rich fighting the poor, it's the poor fighting each other to get the leftovers from what the rich have left for everyone else to get. And so that's so interesting that even though this family does weasel their way in to get just like scraps of like, oh yeah, like we can pay the housekeeper this and we can pay the English teacher this, and so they're just like, they think they're living like kings, like getting this like chump change from the Park family. But then so much of the movie is them fighting and like duking it out with the housekeeper and her husband to be able to remain above ground and to get those scraps. And so that's like what I said, what Bong Joon-Ho said, it's really sad, but it's really realistic. A lot of class wars are the lower classes fighting amongst themselves to like stay as high as you can.
What are they distracting us from? Another thing that's kind of interesting, and this is just commentary directly from the movie, when the old housekeeper is describing her husband to the mom, right? She was like, "Oh yeah, like we had to move him because of the creditors. Like they're finding him, they were coming for him still continuously." And so even
was it creditors or was it like the mob?
the creditors,
Was it creditors?
Yeah,
Okay.
talking about creditors. So I don't know, maybe it was the mob, but she describes them
Somebody
as like
they owe money to.
creditors. Yeah, they owe money too. But the way she describes it is kind of like interesting because like even though this family that comes in and kind of takes over, right? They don't have money, but they're not running from the mob. And in the end, like the symbolism of the father is running, and that's why he's back down in the basement, is because he's led it to where he now owes something, which is his time for the crime that he's committed, which is the murder of the father, which is crazy.
Would you rather spend time down in the basement, or would you rather just get sent to jail?
I'd rather spend time in the clink
Would
because
ya?
of the Dementors. They'll be
Oh.
flying everywhere.
so-
No, I would rather spend time in the basement.
I don't know. Solidarity.
Solidarity is pretty rough.
being-
And just
yeah.
like he says at the very end when he writes the note to his son, which by the way, that's like for me was one of the biggest like okays like of the movie. That was a long ass monologue.
For real.
To do that whole thing in freaking Morse code? Are you kidding me? Sorry, that was like my biggest
I
like
agree.
what is going on?
The family at some point would have woken up and be like, what the crap is going on?
Like,
with that
okay,
line?
like this isn't real. Like what's going on? So yeah, so that was my big
They
thing.
eat a lot of sausages and drink a lot of beer. That was like the best description of this new family. What I thought was crazy is so as they're kind of talking and the son goes back in, right, and he kind of describes his life. I thought he had like done all of this in such a short amount of time that he'd made a ton of money, went to school, made a ton of money, went in and bought the house. But that was just like his vision of what he hoped.
Yeah.
That dad's a goner. I hate to say it like that. He's never coming out. Like
No.
So
He's not going to make that money.
So both for him and then also for Jeon-se, who was the housekeeper's husband, something that I thought about and learned a little bit about in some YouTube videos that I watched was that him being down there and also Kai-tek being down there at the end of the movie was that them being down there, they suffered a social death. And so not just because they were removed from everyone, but also just in the symbolic way of being that like lowest class or like homeless people are just like at the very bottom of the food chain, is that once you get to that point, you're a person, you're physically alive, but socially you're next to nothing. You know, you don't really exist and you're in a way dead. And they represent this in a pretty interesting way, even though the movie is not considered very much a horror movie, but it is in small ways. They used a very horror-esque aspect that the person who suffered the social death and was living in the basement controlled the lights above, which were flickering, which is a classic motif of horror movies of like a undead presence being near, is a flickering light, right? And so they said like that was like meant to be like, hey, these people are like socially dead because they're like, hey, look, it's a ghost because it's a flickering light.
That's cool. Whew, it's deep.
There's a lot of stuff.
I missed
Gosh.
a lot of this, guys.
Yeah.
So here's the thing is that like I think I got a lot like more than some people did like when I watched it the first time, just because I was going in like so ready for like something deep and my mind was turned on like to 10, you know. But there was still so much more that after I watched like a few YouTube videos and stuff, I was just like, what the heck, and everything like that. One of them, let's see. Sorry, I just have like a whole like list.
No,
of, like,
go through it.
things that are like
I'm loving this.
like a different symbolism that happened during the movie. So the social death was definitely one that was huge. Oh, here's something that's more just like a quick little throw in that Bong Joon-ho did. So the Kims showing up to take over like what the housekeeper and all of the other people did. So basically what's happening is that the Kims are showing up and they're taking over and starting to like live and do things in a house where there were already people residing. Bong Joon-ho was like, that was synonymous. And to the like basically the white men like showing up in the Americas where there were already Native Americans living and like taking over and starting doing stuff like that.
Oh crap! That was like the
That was just, like, a
craziest
quick,
thing.
like-
Can I talk about this for a second?
And they showed it with like the boys like Native American things like
Yeah.
that,
His
and so they
little,
wanted
like,
to
party.
throw a little bone to that idea as well.
That was a crazy thing because I saw that. I was like, this is cultural appropriation at first. I was like, what the heck? But then, like, because they make fun of it, like, right, the little boy sticks an arrow in his butt, you know, and then he shoots it around the house. And then at the end, that's kind of like an interesting thing because the father comes out defending everything he has with that knife, right? He just goes for it and then ends up, like, killing, you know, the dad. Like, that represents such a strong plea that probably the Native American people had back in the day. And, like, I'm not trying to make this political or anything like that, to, like, conserve what they had. And, like, that showed through there. That was a very strong
It's
thing.
hard
I was
not
like,
to be
wow.
political because the movie's very political
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
what it's saying. Not only as, like, it's not a commentary saying that, like, capitalism shouldn't exist. It just says that the system we live in is very flawed. The wage gap, or just, like, the gap between rich and poor, gets bigger and bigger every single day. And so it's just a commentary on that. I'm just gonna, like, sort of rapid fire some of these because
Cool,
we have
yeah.
a ton of them and we could spend hours talking about all of them, but there's a lot of them. The crane wing formation for the tables was representative of a very famous military naval maneuver invented by a Korean, like, shipman, which was very famous and a very deadly, like, ship maneuver in that, like, formation of, like, the crane's wings and everything like that. One of the other cool ones is that a lot of times what he wanted to say was that rich people don't realize, even though they're like, yeah, like, I do all of this, like, work, like, I deserve to be rich. Rich people, when they get a lot of their money, it's off of the backs of people who have to do other things. And so one of the ways they showed this was Mr. Park. When he comes home every single night, he walks and the lights turn on, which later we learn is the guy downstairs doing his thing.
Bashing
right?
his head on the wall.
Bashing his head, doing his thing so that they go up. This guy, he thinks that he just walks through the wall and those are motion sensors,
Yeah.
right? He thinks that that's what's happening, but it's not. And so it's showing that the rich a lot of times take a lot of, like, what they do for granted, like, while it's really built off of the work of the exploited, like, poor people. And so they take, what did I write? It says, like, the manual labor required to make his life so comfortable is invisible to him, is what they said. The lack of solidarity and distinction between members of the working poor means they can and will do anything they can, including kill, to get what they want. Because not only is it, like, that the poor have to fight each other because they're, like, what's left, it's that since there's so little, like, I mean, when you're poor, you don't have, like, a big house that's away from people and security cameras and, like, a wall and everything like that. And so it's so easy to, like, fight amongst yourselves when you don't have the means to, like, separate yourselves from the other members of, like, that class as well. No matter how much the rich tolerate the poor, like the lower classes, because they have them in their house and they're like, oh, we like the housekeeper, we like the driver and everything like that. There's always still, I'm just, this is like, what's the movie saying? Don't think I'm over here being like, rich people are the worst. Like, they're all these bad things. This is just like the commentary that the movie makes. Even though rich people will, like, always tolerate the poor and they'll be, like, nice to people at the store and their drivers, everything like that, there's always still a deep-seated resentment. And that's sort of like what gets under Kai-Tek's skin so much, with, like, the guy being like, oh, he smells like old, like, turnips or radishes and everything like that, is that even though they're like, hey, they're friends and they'll talk everything like that, you know, that deep down he doesn't want to, like, be around him and he wants to actually separate himself from that as much as possible. Final one, and this is probably one that I want to sort of, like, just talk about, which is why I left it for last with you guys, is this myth sort of that exists in the world, that it's not a myth, but a lot of times we think that hard work is super important for, like, anything that happens in the world. If you want something, you have to work hard for it. But a lot of times you don't take into account the opportunity, the things that need to happen in order to do that they don't just show up for everyone. And so what I want to talk about is in his letter that he writes to his dad, Ki-woo, he says, I'll work really hard, I'll get up enough money to buy this house, and then I'm going to buy it. And on the first day that we live there, all you'll have to do is walk up the stairs. And so then basically that's just symbolic of saying, hey, like, if you want to, like, jump up to a higher social class or everything like that, you just have to walk up the stairs. As in saying, like, if you want to be in a better social class, you just have to work harder. Like, you just have to do things like that. And while part of that is true, it's also this huge myth where, like, people are like, if you want to be rich, you just have to work harder. And that's, like, all there is to it, when it's really not true. I'm not saying that hard work can't get you something, but people thinking that it's only working hard that will, like, get you somewhere in life, and not having connections, not having a base, doing everything like that, is just super crazy. And that's like sort of like what I want to talk to you as like the final sort of thing that left us thinking was that, like, where there's different opportunities and everything in life, and that being somewhere where you want to be isn't just hard work, it's other things as well.
I think it shows that too in the way that they get this job at the house. You know, like it's not based on their merit. It's not based on the work that they've done in the past. Like, not for some of them anyway. It was based on, like we talked about earlier, word of mouth connections. You know, I've said this 100 times, especially like in my field. Like, did I really need 4 years of college or however long I went to college? I don't know. It's been a long time. Probably not. I probably didn't need all that to learn my craft, you know. But did it help? Yeah. Did it help me guide me in the right direction? Yeah. But I kind of stumbled into it in a way, you know. But yeah, a lot of the people that I know who are successful are in the positions that they have because of the people that know the connections that they've made. It's not. I mean, they're good at what they do. They put the hard work into it. But my wife, like, I talk to her all the time about it. I'm like, she has friends that can't get a job in the field because they don't get along with specific people, you know. So I 100% agree that, like, yes, you need to know people, and some people are in a position, and, you know, I was in a position that I got my job through other people, you know. I guess my point is just, like, I think it's a mix of both. You can't just work hard and expect your podcast to be the number one podcast on the radio. You got to put in the work, and you got to make connections, and you got to keep sticking to it and keep doing it and working hard at it. I think it represents it really well. Just don't cut corners and don't manipulate people, because eventually it's going to catch up to you and you're going to regret it.
You're going to be the one who ends up in the basement, like High Tech does. What do you think, Casey?
I feel personally that I've gone a long ways due to the people I know. I got in with a startup a few years back, and essentially I was working in a place, and their van showed up that I'd seen in a promotional video, and I like freaked out at the guy who walked in. I was like, "You work for this company? I love this company. I know all about it." And I like told the story about the founder, and they're like, "Well, hey, if you're such a big fan of our company, we need like a volunteer to come work at this event." And I went and worked this event, and then I kept showing up to events, and eventually like, "Hey, we can pay you for this. Hey, actually, will you take our van and our 2 llamas, and will you go, on this road trip around and visit 5 colleges in 3 days?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" Like, I did a ton of field marketing for them. They paid me for that. And then eventually I worked there for 3 years just off of this type of connection. So I would say, based off of me putting in a little bit of work, and I would say I worked hard, like, I got in with people because I kept making friends with the people that work at this company. And like, I respect the hustle for anyone who connects well, but also works hard, because it's hard to do. Because you can be a good socialite and a poor worker, because you might be able to say, "Oh yeah, I have all these talents," but if you don't show up and deliver on what no one's going to recommend you in the future. You're not going to grow. But if you can show up and deliver, which is very hard combination most of the time for people to do, because you're always supposed to, in interviews, sell yourself really well. And a lot of people tend to oversell what they can do,
which is like one of my biggest fears.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's why all the time, like, if I go in an interview, like at my work, like I interview all the time for what are called temporary development opportunities. I like play it as low as I can. Like, I kind of suck at this, I'll be honest with you, because like
set an expectation and then overpass it.
I'd rather pull the whole like Jake from like Avatar, where he's like, they're like, "Oh, everyone else's cup is full." He's like, "But my cup is empty." I'd rather do that than like oversell myself. But I tend to be pretty cocky too, I guess. But it's all about who you know in the long run, because I look at entrepreneurs in our state, and a lot of them are just connected together, and they keep connecting together, and they keep selling each other their crap, and they keep getting richer off of it. They have grunts to do the labor for them.
So work hard, be nice, don't bullcrap people,
and wear some cool shoes.
So it brings us to the very end of the movie, literally, where he has that thing that I said where he says, "And when you're ready, just walk up the stairs." And he walks up, and it's this beautiful moment with the family reuniting, even though they've lost their sister, which, by the way, like, sorry that we didn't get to talk about that scene, like the whole final, like, Indian where everyone dies and everything like that, where it really all comes to a head. But it's basically just that happening, even though there is a lot of symbolism within it. It's basically just everything boils over to the point where, like, they can't take it anymore, and just
Everyone
everything
snaps.
being in close quarters and everything that they want to happen.
I feel like
just
that
boils
represents
over.
balance, to be honest with you. That's the part, like, these guys were just like hustling so hard, and like, sorry to like commandeer this
go
moment.
ahead.
Like
I was really surprised we didn't talk about it, so please do.
what happened is all these people did was they wanted money. They didn't want happiness. They didn't want life balance. They just were chasing the dollar, right? And so everything else was like grinding down on them, and they were just like burnt out. And that's what happened to the dad. He like got to where he was comfortable, and then that one thing that spoiled everything, he just like clicked and burned out. I don't know, snapped maybe is the right way to say it. He burned out. Next thing you know, burning out goes to stabbing someone, goes to living in, isolation for the rest of his days.
I just want to like fill that in a little bit. Because the dad stabbing someone, I did not get when I watched it. Like, I was like, why did he snap all of a sudden? And this might be showing my privilege a little bit that I didn't see this through the movie. But like, he's constantly, and he was constantly like being bad mouthed, saying he kind of smelled funny, that being judged. And that would grate on you a little bit. And then he has that terrible night after the storm, sleeps on the floor, wakes up the next day, and then just starts listening to this family talk about what a blessing that the water was when he was lost everything, and then just looking in the back and still is being judged by the family. He looks back and he sees them, the wife cover his nose. Like, it's building up this disconnect that he sees between them until it just gets to the point. And then they go to the party, and the dad's like, the rich dad basically tells him, you're going to do this. This is your job, whether you like it or not. Just think
And you're
this
getting
is
paid
work.
to
You're
be
getting
here.
paid until he just gets pushed and pushed and pushed to the end, like you said, and just snaps.
And he snaps because think about when we talked a little bit, when I mentioned about the rich's like internal always having like the actual like distaste for the poor. The family was so like, they knew, even though this girl had just been stabbed, they knew we have to get Da-sung to the hospital in 15 minutes or he might not make it or anything like that. In that moment where time was so crucial, the dude threw the keys. They ended up under the guy. He went to go get them. He paused and took a second to cover his nose because of how bad it smelled.
Yeah, after yelling at, sorry, I don't know their names, after yelling at the dad, give me the keys, when his, I guess he doesn't know that it's his daughter, but when she's dying in his arms, and the only thing that guy can think is, give me the keys so I can get the important people in his mind to safety.
Exactly. And like just taking that moment, ugh. So anyway,
sad. It's really sad.
So I'm glad we actually ended up talking about that scene. But then, so the very end, it's this very beautiful shot, because a lot of times we get the shot of that window from basically the couch's perspective, where it's very perfect, very like rectangular. This time we get the shot. He comes up the stairs into the light. He goes out in the yard into the family. It's a beautiful, bright day. Very gorgeous, so much light, like we've talked about, is the symbolism of the happiness and the wealth sort of flowing into the family, and he hugs his family and everything like that. But then, just in case you got any sort of like hint in your mind that was what would actually happen, the movie ends on its final shot returning to the first shot of the movie, in the dark, in the blue, descending into the semi-basement where the sun is, in a very dark shot, saying, until then, like, take care. And then, I don't know if you guys looked this up or saw this, the movie rolls credits, right? And the song that plays during the credits is a song that is sung by the actor that plays Ki-woo.
Right? Oh,
no, because it's a boy. No, so it's
was
Ki-woo.
it?
So the one that's Kevin, right? So the son in the Kim family, it's sung by him. And the song, I've heard two different numbers. One of them is 540 years. One of them is 564 years. Basically, what happens in this song describes Kevin or Ki-woo working as long as he can and as hard as he can for everything in life. And basically, like, from what they sat down and did the math, it would take someone who was in Kevin's position 540 or 564 years to actually have enough money to be able to buy that house. And so not only is it saying like that like ending that we showed you, which is like what the family would want their happy ending to be, like what every family dreams of is that like wealth and that happiness and that light, like we've talked about, is just an unrealistic expectation with the society and the world that we live in right now. In a very literal way, like to the very end of the movie, because that song rolls like through the credits.
That's cool.
It's saying Like, it's just not gonna like, if you're like thinking, oh yeah, like he'll work hard and he'll do that, he's just like, it's not gonna happen. The whole song's 564 years for someone to do that.
Sad.
Damn. That's all I can say about that. It's just the craziest thing to me, and I don't know. It'd be hard.
So I just have one last thing to say. I read a quote by the director, Bong Joon-Ho, who said that he kind of wishes that he would have named, I mean, this isn't the exact quote, but he kind of wishes that he would have named this movie Parasites instead of Parasite, because like we talked about, everybody in this movie is a form of parasite. The family latches on to the rich people, tries to mooch off of them. The rich people are dependent on the underclass to take care of them. The people that live in the basement are dependent on the people above to give them food. I thought I had this movie pegged, that the family was the parasites, mooching off of this rich family, and I was very wrong.
So would you say that this is like the natural cycle of life, like the rich and the poor, and like the deer dying and the worms decomposing it and feeding the grass, and the circle of life type thing there? Or is it just more like shit runs downhill?
I don't know. I wasn't ready for that question.
I'm sorry.
So for
Maybe
me,
my question was too stupid. I don't know.
No, I see what you're saying, and I don't want that to be the circle of life, because I don't want I don't want it to be that there has to be people who, you know, are
Suffer.
subservient to other people.
But
I guess that is society, is like, we need people to do specific jobs, and the people who are able to do the jobs that pay what they pay are going to provide jobs for the people who can't do those, or who haven't worked hard enough, or haven't had the situation to put them into that job. You know, like, it's just society. And be kind to each other no matter where you're at. Like, be nice to the people around you, even if, you know, they don't make as much money as you, or if they're turning, you know, you're maid. Like, be kind to everybody.
Yeah. And so the question that you had like sort of originally posed, when I think, because you mentioned at the beginning that we were going to talk about near the end, so it's sort of like, who are the real parasites? And I think it comes down to, it's everyone.
We're all parasites.
Like, everyone like feeding off each other in different ways, just doing what they can to make marginal gains if you're in the poor, or just feeding off the manual labor of those beneath you to get ahead if you're the rich. Everyone in the movie, at least, is in some way a form of a parasite.
Cool movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, super deep.
That was
super
a deep
pumped.
movie.
There are a lot. So, like, here's like a little heads up, you guys. So this is going to be drop in next week. The Oscars will not have come out yet, and if you listen to this after the Oscars, then you already know more than me now. So a lot of people have 1917 as the front runner for Best Picture. The runner up for a lot of people, Parasite.
Yeah, I've kind
People,
of
because
been hearing that.
like all of us, if you listen to our Oscar predictions episode, guess Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I still think that could definitely be the case. But a lot of people are saying it's probably going to be 1917, and they're saying if it's not 1917, the Academy is going to throw us for a loop and give the first Korean film. So this is the first Korean film that's been nominated for any Academy Award. Like, and it'll be the first, people are saying it's going to be the first international picture to win Best Picture.
That'd be crazy.
I hope they don't do it like just for that though, because I'm all about like people earning like what they're given, and I love this movie.
I feel like it does. Like as much as I didn't connect with it, it's I was wrong. Like, it's an Oscar-worthy movie. Like, they put the work into it.
I don't think it'll win though, because I think it'll win original screenplay, but not Best Picture, because I see it sort of with the social commentary and what it does as a very similar picture to Get Out. And so in that same way, I think it'll get nominated for Best Picture. It'll win Best Screenplay, but the Best Picture will.
And they'll take
Go
that
somewhere else.
foreign prize.
Oh, easy. Like, that would literally, out of anything, be like the most ginormous.
I'm glad I redacted my vote on Corpus Christi.
So there we go.
There you have it.
Parasite.
Thanks for
Yes,
sticking
sure.
with us.
Yeah, that
What
was
do
a
we
long
wa-
episode. So
You want to
sorry.
announce what we're watching next?
Next.
This was a heavy film. I just have to say that in conclusion. This is heavier than I thought it was, and I'm still, what the hell did I watch? But wow, so heavy, so good. You want me to announce it?
The next movie is going to be so heavy, so wow.
The next movie. The next movie. The next movie that we will be watching
It's not up there.
is half of a drum roll. Birds of Prey.
Hey.
Yay!
Essentially, this is the next phase in the Harley Quinn series, which I'm super pumped about. Margot Robbie, fantastic actress, putting together an all-star cast, which I believe should be pretty kick-ass. I don't know, Vince, how are you feeling about it so far?
I'm excited to see it. I didn't really know what to expect, but the hubbub around this movie is very positive lately. I don't think we have to go into it looking for all this like social commentary and deep thought and da 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 da. I think we can just sit back and watch Harley Quinn beat up Ewan McGregor and then come back here and just nerd out about how cool how much fun superhero movies are.
I'm
There we
down. Well, let's do it. Let's close this out. Thank you to the two of you for coming over, hanging at my house, and talking movies as per usual. And to those folks listening, thank you for being our supporters, our friends. If you could tell a friend about this podcast, please do. We want to grow the podcast. We want to continue to be here for a longer period of time. So just hit that follow us button, like button, smash it wherever you are. Interact with us on social media, on Instagram, Pause Rewind Play Podcast, on Twitter at Pause Rewind Pla. We're going to be doing a little bit of overhaul on our social media and on our website, so I'm kind of excited about that upcoming stuff. Yes. I know I've said all of this before, but we actually have a game plan. We have somebody who is going to whip us into shape and help us along this
take
journey.
Some leadership, because we're terrible at following through on the things we promise.
It's my wife, the lady boss. I'll be honest with you.
Remember how we were supposed to watch Halloween and then we never did, and then we were supposed to watch Terminator Dark Fate and then we never did. Now we have someone to kick us into shape.
Yeah. So
also
it's
check us out on YouTube. We're on YouTube there too. Eventually, it's not happening yet, but eventually we want to start doing some video stuff. So we are releasing these audio podcasts on YouTube. We'd love your subscription over there if you want to.
Yes. And any fan art you have, if you want to put Pause Rewind Play on your hand and do like one of those cool old emo kid shots like back in the day from MySpace, do that too. No,
I just feel like YouTube is going to be it's going to be a way that we can kind of communicate with the audience more with our comments section. So we'll be checking that too. If there's something that we've said that you're like really want to communicate to us, if there's something we missed, if there's something whatever, the YouTube comments will be a good way that we can see it directly. Twitter will be, Instagram will be, it all is, but
and
find a way to
DMs.
reach out to us. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, we want to do it. I was actually thinking, guys, that maybe I'll run this by on the podcast, and any folks who listen this far can actually chime in on it on our social media. I think we should do similar to our Nolan bracket. I think we should do a Marvel bracket, like a Marvel movies bracket.
Oh, that could be
That
scary.
would be tight. I think it'd be fun. So if you guys are down, I think we should set that up and start pushing that out a little bit. So
Dope. I'll get on it.
Let us know if you guys are down for us to do a Marvel movie bracket, and catch you next time on the Pause Rewind Play podcast.
Respect.